Okay.
Hello everyone. Right now we are in live
Now
session.
we have 73 attendees. We have 70, 80 attendees.
Okay.
Okay.
So Pamela, shall we start?
Yes.
Okay.
So wow, I think I see the numbers just increasing. Okay, so welcome everybody to this impromptu webinar that we have pulled together. So just to give you a little perspective, I think the genesis of this has been that, all of us, as we are going about our regular, have been sharing the challenges we've been having in this during this pandemic, informally with each other. And, I personally was trying to see how we can help. In the first wave, we did certain things like making
I can't talk to you right now.
Yeah, somebody needs to go on mute. So in that, but suddenly in the second wave, when we started experiencing all these challenges and tragedies around us, I think a lot of us felt, what can we do to help? And we reached out to a few hospitals, and we found out, I found some of my colleagues and some of my classmates in the Delhi area trying to import oxygenators and donate them to the hospital. So we said, well, why don't we do the same thing in Bangalore? And when we reached out to a hospital, I realized that they had already acquired oxygenators, and when they were trying to use it on patients, they found that it was not having the desired effect. And they realized that a lot of these imported oxygenators are just pumping air rather than providing the right levels of oxygen purity, which can actually help the patients. And they were having to junk these. So there was a lot of donation money coming in, and people are trying all the goodwill from the people, but this is all getting wasted. So it kind of triggered, and then as I shared this with a lot of people, I think that a lot of us are in the same boat. And we felt, why don't we mobilize the community and try to see what we can do to make in India. Then we came across the fact that ISC has been trying to do something in this direction for the last almost year or so. And we found this group, Oxogen. They have a solution which they are ramping to production. So we said, why don't we get everybody together? And this is a starting point. And our intention is to bring the right stakeholders together. And in the audience today, there are a lot of people from potential manufacturers, regulators, and volunteers, and probably funders, if you want to do crowdfunding or something. So there's a lot of people who are very keenly interested. It's amazing to see that we have over 100 attendees just when we announced this last year, 136 attendees right now in this session. So I pass it on to Mr. Pathak, Mr. R.K. Pathak from Department of Telecommunications. He's the Deputy Director General of International Collaborations. He's also the person who, was kind of like the founding father of TSDSI. He conceived the whole concept of TSDSI, and he currently is also responsible for TCOE, the Telecom Center of Excellence, which is trying to promote a lot of the startup MSME community in India to manufacture in India. His focus was 5G, but when we told him what about oxygen concentrator, he said, yes, of course. So thanks to him for coming and encouraging this, and let's hear from him, and then from all the researchers and entrepreneurs here. Over to you, Mr. Pathak. But before I do that, I think there is a provision to put your questions in the chat, and Bindu will guide us through all the logistics. And also in the Q&A sessions, if people who want to speak, they can raise their hands and they can be unmuted. So over to you, Mr. Pathak.
Thank you, Pamela. I'm sure I'm audible. And I would like to first pay my respect to all the gurus here, because I think they have been the guiding always in all the times, and naturally this more important during the pandemic. So today's session is a very unique session that we have professors who have done a lot of research on a subject, as well as industry who want to manufacture, and user also as a hospital also. So all three are together. And I think whatever Pamela you told, I have the practical experience that even I imported a oximeter from China and it's not giving the result, though it says that it's 10 liter per minutes it has to give, and its weight is also exactly more than 20 kg, whatever I could find out from internet. This should give me the desired flow of about 10, and that was my requirement for my patient, but it's not giving. So I think this is in this pandemic, this is the right forum that we all Indians should come together. And that's what I am saying. So all whoever is on the attendee side also, so even their help will be required. We have so many Indian startup forums and others on our website to them that we have to manufacture oximeters, ventilators, and concentrators, whatever is required for the country from our own design, such that we also fulfill our requirement and subsequently export also. As far as TCOE India is concerned, presently they are doing the implementing, working as implementing agency for two schemes of Department of Telecommunication, and that is one is 5G Hackathon. In the 5G Hackathon, we have shortlisted 100 startups, MSME, and professionals. Even students are also there. So total 67 students and startup and 33 professionals. And right now we are handholding them to develop their use cases, applications, and DOT has already announced 5G trials some 4 days back. So these all 100 can demonstrate their applications. Even this is the message to all the professors, industry, academia here, including hospitals, that if you have any 5G use case, the moment we are going to start the live 5G trial with the telecom service provider, I invite you and I will be the contact person. I am the contact person in the department. I'll be sharing my email. So you just mail me and I will ensure that we showcase our Indian 5G use cases when we are doing the trial. Naturally, you have to bear all your expenses and I will ensure that I give you the access part. So whatever is available with the telecom service provider, whatever is available with the OEMs like Ericsson, Nokia, Samsung, Reliance Jio, they have been permitted, including CDOT, or even suppose if someone comes like Civit comes with their own technology, so I think they are also welcome. If anyone, I mean from you, is interested to showcase your technology, I will assist you in the 5G trial. Other than that, on 4th we started another scheme that is called Digital Communication Innovation Square, under which again DOT will be funding more than 10 startups who have already developed their proof of concept product beyond the proof of concept. So this will be just for 1 year scheme, and all the details are available on TCOE India website. With this, I would like to, I think today I am the listening mode. I want that let the professors and industry talk to each other so that we do a more novel cause of development of oximeters, concentrators, and ventilators, and that should be low cost as per our requirement. Thank you. Thank you, Pamela, and all the delegates here and this panelists.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Pathak and Pamela, for setting the context. Dear participants, I'm Bindu Srivastav. I look after Marcom and partner relations at TSDSI. And thank you so much for the overwhelming response joining at such short notice this webinar on oxygen concentrators and ventilators. As already explained by Pamela and Mr. Pathak, we will be discussing some prototypes, some designs which have been developed indigenously in India on oxygen concentrators and ventilators. So here today we have experts from IISc Bangalore, Professor Raghavan and his team, who in the early 2020s started with development of a ventilator, and early this year they've also designed an oxygen concentrator. Professor Raghavan is from the Center for Nanoscience and Engineering at IISc Bangalore, and he led this initiative of the ventilator and the oxygen concentrator projects, and he would be sharing his experience, his team's experience on what it takes to design the prototypes and how the manufacturing, what are the various aspects required for bringing it to the manufacturing stage. He's also, Professor Raghavan is also was earlier the chair of the IP cell at IISc Bangalore, and currently he's spearheading the initiative, the activities required to commercialize the licensing aspect and other regulatory compliances for the concentrator ventilator. So over to you, Professor Raghavan, to lead us through the first part of this webinar, which is from prototype to manufacturing. Thank you. Professor Raghavan, I'm going to unmute you.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can I share my screen? Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet.
So can you share, get the rights to share the screen, Professor?
Okay, show screen. Okay.
You, Professor Raghavan, you would have received the, yeah.
Yes, now we can see it.
You can see it now. Thank you.
Okay, and hold on. This is a new interface, and this day and age, there are many of these. Okay, can you see my slideshow now? Then I'm trying to see how I can minimize this bit.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can see it. We can see it properly.
Just a second here.
Please go ahead.
And yeah, and while we're waiting for Professor Raghavan, just a small announcement. Delegates, if you have any questions from the panelists, from the speakers, please type them in the question tab. And should you want to exchange notes with your fellow participants or with others, please type your remarks in the chat window. Thank you. Professor Raghavan.
Yeah, thank you and good morning, everybody. My name is Vasu. I am a faculty member at the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. And I will not take much time. Over the next 5 minutes, I will set the stage and hand it over to the people who are actually making a difference on the ground. These include Dr. Justin Gopaldas, who is an intensivist in the ICU at Manipal hospitals. Praveen, who led the work on the oxygen concentrator, which is the need of the hour. Sushoban, who is now leading the effort on the ventilator, and then Anup Varghese, who is taking it towards commercialization. I thank TSDSI, Ms. Pamela Kumar, Bindu, and her team for making this interface possible, and I'm very glad to be here. I'm very acutely aware of the fact that today is the 8th of May 2021. That is why I have put it out there. And we don't have time to lose. And we are actually currently racing against time to make about, let's say, 10 to 25 of these concentrators and ventilators by the 15th to the 30th of May, as you will hear from the rest of the team. Okay, just to take you through our history really quickly, our entire journey started in January of 2020, when the first news started coming in from Italy. When I started talking to Justin and we started discussing this internally, as many of you may have, we very quickly realized that there is going to be a big gap in the supply demand as far as healthcare is concerned on this front. And remember, this was a time when there were no vaccines. And we came to the conclusion, as the rest of the world had come to, and you had started seeing quote unquote hacks for ventilators and concentrators on the web. We went all the way to the very beginning to figure out how we could push air into patients or oxygen into patients. So this is how we started. Okay. Our aim at that point in time was not to make it the cheapest, but to make it at the fastest time scale possible, so that before COVID hit us, we would have something on the ground. Unfortunately, as we started developing it, we realized that it's better not to make a biomedical instrument that is not good, because it might end up killing a patient more than helping them. And in any case, as we were going through this journey, the first wave kind of started subsiding. But as engineers, we couldn't wait. So we continued. And by about June of 2020, we had a concentrator and a ventilator ready, okay, in about 6 months. In manufacturing parlance, this is what we say is a product that has reached a technology readiness level of 8. Typically 4 is a lab prototype that looks like an octopus with wires hanging around. And then you come to this point where you say it's a TRL level 8, where it's ready for certification and mass production. So this is where we were at June of 2020 last year. Then, as we've been hearing over the last few days on just about every front, the first COVID wave waned. We lost interest. Okay, I shouldn't say we lost interest. Our interest waned too. I mean, the faculty team, the student team, many small industries and people who had joined us to help us on this road. But then a month ago, it started all over again. I mean, people started calling us and telling us that even if you have a concentrator or a ventilator that's half working, I would like to have one because it might save a life. And that's where we restarted this whole activity. The bottleneck is, and people ask us, why is it that you didn't go forward? It's a chicken and an egg story, right? We found it easier to work with the relatively smaller companies like Vasmed and Gas Technologies and so on. But these companies need some kind of a purchase commitment before they can put in investment in an uncertain scenario. But nobody wants to make that purchase commitment. The first thing they say is, okay, show us about 20 to 25 of these things before we make a purchase. This is where I think now the larger companies or corporations or people out there who might be able to step in need to step in, because Vasmed, as you will hear from them, their board has agreed to put in about 20 to 30 lakhs of investment to make the first 10 to 30 prototypes. But then they will need money to scale it up. Okay, so this was the main bottleneck. Don't worry about IP. As Bindu said, I was the IP chair and the entire policy framework is available. It will be available on the IIC website. It will be available for free for all practical purposes for those of you who want to make it on a no cost or no profit basis. If you would like to make a profit, then there is a 1% royalty fee of the revenue that will be charged, but it's an extremely small amount. But the key thing, and we would like to ramp up production by, let's say, the 30th of May, is to get the supply chain going, get the assembly done, and get certification done. All of this is happening in parallel on these two devices as we speak. If China can put up a, I forget, 1,000 or 10,000 bed hospital in 10 days, I'm sure this is something that we can very easily do. Okay. So with that, I am going to hand over the baton to Dr. Justin Gopaldas, who is from Manipal. He is an ICU intensivist. We've been working with him on day one, who will tell us what is the latest supply-demand gap scenario. He has told me that they need concentrators to ventilators in the ratio of 5:1, and I hope he will also then be able to tell you what is the latest status and what his view is on some of these prototypes that he has personally tested. With that, thank you. Once again, extremely glad to be here, and I hope we are able to answer many of your questions and we come up with a plan to take this forward today. With that, over to you, Justin.
Good morning. I'm humbled with the request to be a participant, and I take the heavy burden of representing the end user of these technologies, which is a healthcare professional. And as what you said, I've been associated with their energetic company, I must say, because this is what I've realized is that by integrating with them over the last year, despite the hard times that we had from June till October last year and even now, they are the positive force in my day. Interacting with them is the positive result that I take, even though we deal with a lot of gloom in the hospitals, particularly as an ICU doctor. So I thank them for giving that positive boost to my professional life and keeping that variation, and also allowing me to think out of the box at times, or reach to the knowledge gap that I had in some of these corners when I'm interacting with an engineer. Thank you for that. Coming to the point, I'll just make it a quick and a crisp point that about 2 weeks ago I called Wasu and said that I've just got one of my colleagues calling who is on weekend. We all take turns to doing COVID weeks. Most of us do the COVID week anyway, but somebody takes the first on, as in the one who coordinates all the admissions and discharges. So one of my colleagues who is doing that ended up calling me saying that, remember last year you were making the ventilator that you guys sort of circulated about its third version. So is it available? If you have a couple of them, can I use them? And then I called Vasu saying that, what's happening with that? And Vasu said that we have taken it apart, we're upgrading the software, and so it's done. And I said, is it possible? Can we use it? And he said, and they did 2 all-nighters. I am amazed at the amount of energy they put in, even the first time as well. They got it done under 48 hours with all the tweaks that I wanted. And we fired it up in hospital. And it worked like a charm. For the sort of most sick patients, it would save the day for quite a few of them. And so that was a step 1 for us. And the step 2 was to make sure that we get the clearances, because these are new devices, like any drug or a machine in healthcare industry. Like Vasu was saying, the first rule for us is that do no harm. So even if you can't help, that's fine, but do no harm. So unfortunately, based on that process, we have to get ethics clearance from industry, from our hospitals to use them on for patients in extraordinary circumstances, and then probably use the data tomorrow when the certification is going on to assist with the quality and safety of the device. And that's how this conversation reignited between Vasu and us, which have been sort of waned in previous months. And this is because, as you all probably know, who are all are here in webinar from various parts of India, that various parts are suffering at various degrees from this COVID. And if you have any family member who has gone through this, including some of my colleagues, they themselves weren't able to get the beds in their working hospital. It is that bad. Forget about the friends or neighbors or known person, even your own close blood relatives, they weren't able to get into the same hospital. It is so chock-a-block. My current ICU is running at 170%. There isn't space to walk between the patient's beds. At this point of time, what the actual the capacity of the hospital is that we have a 60%, generally as per guidance, 60% beds will have ventilator, not all 100%. And so when you have 170% occupancy at this point, and I only have 60% ventilators, there is a big gap. I am pretty sure that there are, even if all 170% are not on ventilator, there is a big gap of anything between 20 to 80% of people who need ventilator and are already being given alternatives like a BiPAP machine, which isn't fulfilling their job, but they had no other choice. And this is where this lacune or this gap has been shared not just by me from one hospital chain, but many others in Bangalore city that I know, fellow colleagues. And as much as the machine is, yes.
Dr. Jasin, could you kindly switch on your video if that's possible?
So no, I think the administrator had to switch it on. I think I don't have that capacity. So it says that administrator has to switch it on.
Okay, we have enabled it. If you could, if you have the, you'll have to switch on your camera if you're getting that tab. Otherwise, we can continue. If you can find the tab easily. No problem.
No, that's okay. That's okay. We'll just I think a couple more minutes and I'll finish my rant. Yeah.
Thank you very much. No problem.
Sorry. So essentially, my collaboration with the Indian Institute of Sciences and the lacunae or the gaps that we found, particularly in relation to intensive care or sick people who are in need of oxygen supply, are probably not and their needs aren't being met, and that's been increasing ever so, because every day passes, we have realized that we no longer admitting patients who don't need oxygen to hospitals. So hospitals now are filled with oxygen dependent patients. We are only admitting sicker group of patients to ICU, which means that the chance of them needing ICU and also ventilator is higher proportion now compared to maybe 3 weeks ago. And yes, we are distilling admissions, but then based on the load of the cases, and most of these patients, when they come admitted to hospital, they will not leave because they are so sick, and this length of stay becomes 7 to 14 or even many weeks for some of the critically ill patients. We have what we call as a rotating volume of the hospitals, which is very low, and creating an artificial jam in the system. All of these things make resource utilization all that higher, oxygen need all that higher, ventilator use all that higher, and that's where the Indian Institute of Sciences project, which is up to date and fit for certification, as I see it, probably needs one last step of boost with the clinical use in a hospital setting, as we are trying to pursue that through our hospital ethics committee at this point of time. Hopefully we'll get through that in the next couple of days. And then once it is used for a clinical use, and it's probably ready for Drug Control of India's certification as well, and then mass production with no limitation of or worry, because it is an approved product. So this is what I'm looking forward to, because this wave is still ongoing, and we haven't reached the peak yet, and we can see that the patients are still are stuck, not getting what they need, as the opening chair has clearly said, with the Delhi experience, and now Bangalore has experienced the same fact. And with this highlighting of lacunae and our end user request for more of these devices, and with Vasu's leadership and the friendship, that we've come to address some of these things, and hope the rest of the panelists would explain the journey in a little bit more scientific and detailed way. And I hope that this would come to a meaningful result and help people in these difficult times. Thank you all for the opportunity.
We can have the next speaker.
Professor Raghavan, I think you're muted. So can we introduce? Just a minute. Let me try getting you unmuted. Professor Raghavan, you are self-muted.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, you're audible.
Thank you, Justin. I was just wondering if you could quickly comment on the need currently for oxygen concentrators versus ventilators. If I'm not wrong, there is a bigger pressing need now for oxygen concentrators than there is for ventilators. Is that correct?
I think both are in need. Certainly, the oxygen concentrators is designed as a way to reduce the oxygen demand deficit at this point, what we are experiencing all over the country, but also in Bangalore circles. In the last number of weeks, there are near misses for many of the hospitals that I know, and that everybody is now taking extraordinary measures of reducing the targets for oxygen for each patient to see if they can save oxygen, save that extra 20 minutes. So I guess the oxygen concentrators in bulk probably would reduce the demand on the hospitals, and probably would buy a safety for most of the institutions. That's number one. And number two is that These could be used in a large scale, certainly when beds aren't being available. And I have a feeling if there is a big facility that's going to be set up, a piped gas setup in those settings for a low oxygen demand patients is going to be very difficult, and it's infrastructure wise is a big task. So oxygen concentrators in bulk at that point would serve as a triaging center and holding center until they've been transported to a nearby hospital. So if that kind of a triage system, if it comes alive. Ventilators, yes, the ratio as was mentioned is 5:1, stands good. Yeah.
And would you be able to quickly put a number on the number of concentrators or ventilators that Bangalore as a city might need?
So, like I said, the majority of the hospitals are oxygen beds at this point of time. To an extent, 80% of hospital beds currently are oxygen beds, supposedly supposed to supply oxygen. And none of these hospitals have ever used 80% beds as an oxygen beds ever in their lifetime. So that's the demand. So when you challenge the upper limit of the hospital's capacity, you are going to get into trouble. And so, like a 100-bedded hospital would need 80 oxygen ports, and so even if you reduce it by, like, replace those piped to with the concentrators, even in 20%, that's a big number to change. 20% difference. Yeah.
So an upper bound would be the total number of hospital beds in Bangalore, and they would all need at least one oxygen concentrator, and maybe 1/5 of them would need a ventilator, roughly speaking, if one wants to put numbers, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Justin. Of course, we will, please hang on. We will need your inputs as there will be questions later. Now we will go to Professor Praveen Ramurthy, who has been leading the effort on oxygen concentrators. And I must admit that I have been more of a coordinator and putting together a team of experts in place. Praveen has been leading the the oxygen concentrator effort from day one on his own. While one team in STEM started working on the ventilator, he started working on the concentrator. There is some confusion between a oxygen concentrator and a oxygen generator. I checked with Professor Dasappa today morning. There is another team in IISc that has also made what they call an oxygen generator. The basic principle of operation of the machine that Praveen is going to talk about, that we are calling an oxygen concentrator, is the same as the basic principle of the machine that they are calling as oxygen generator. The only difference is the one that Praveen will talk about will be able to deliver somewhere between 5 and 10 liters per minute of oxygen. To put that number in perspective, the average human being breathes in air at the rate of about 30 liters per minute. Actually, we are an amazing machine ourselves. And the oxygen generator that Professor Dasappa has put together, it's more of like an industrial scale, and it can go up to maybe 50 liters per minute. So Praveen's concentrator is about 5 to 10 liters per minute. That's what he's calling the concentrator. And the oxygen generator can deliver up to 50 liters per minute. The principle remains the same. So with that, over to you, Praveen. He's put together an oxygen concentrator where I'm guessing the ballpark price is somewhere in the regime of about 20 to 40,000 Indian rupees. Go ahead, Praveen. It's over to you.
Yeah, thanks. You can see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'll start. Thank you. Thanks for this platform to discuss this. I agree with all the previous speakers. This is such a important and interesting systems that we have. It could be made better. That's what so, and also I actually just got off from another discussion with BBMP, where we are trying to place order for 1,500 oxygen concentrator from China. Nowhere else it's available. But on the same breath, we were discussing with other groups from government agencies, various government agencies, that lot of Chinese concentrators has issues with purity at even at 3-4 liters per minute. So this is not to scare that not to use a Chinese thing, but the reality is some of them do work, and some of them do not. So there is a challenge, and that's where we are right now. I will very quickly run through what we have, what the story behind how we did this, and then where we are right now, and then we can take questions based on that. So, so we three of us in our group, we started working on the oxygen concentrator. We are new to this system, but of course, I'm from materials engineering department, so we started looking at the materials perspective. We started putting it together, understand what all the problems and what can we do. This was early 2020, right? And then within a month we were able to come up with a system. I'm not going to discuss this. So there were enough scary news items that came that we have enough oxygen problem. This is way back in 2000, right? So we looked at what all out there. Why do you need oxygen for in medicine? How does it connect to COVID care? I am not sure how all of this, what I'm showing you here in the left hand side, is correct, but these are the things that are what we could get from literature. And on top of this, WHO has put out a document showing how to make a oxygen concentrator, right? That was openly available to everybody, and we searched quite a bit, and many all over the world, not just in India, have started making it, and all of them, none of them were able to get above 50%, right? That was the challenge. That's where we stepped in, said, look, there is an opportunity here to do something, so let's start looking at little more carefully. So that's again, these are the three guys, myself, Bhaskar, and Dr. Arun. All three of us got together and then started building very basic system to see whether we can start generating. This system design was actually taken from WHO document, which I showed you here. This is available. I can share with anybody as we go along. All right. So while this was happening, that's when SID's Tatpar scheme, head by Professor Gurumurthy, Yatish, and the entire team, got in and said they supported for making this. I mean, you need money to start making any of these things. So they supported with funding and logistics too. So that's where the whole thing started. This was again almost a year ago. This is a team which actually we sat and built the system. This photo was taken 3 months ago when our system was almost a final version from the lab. So you have Kumar, Raghava, Vijay, Ashika, and Bhaskar. Okay. So very simple. Again, I will not go through too much technical detail, but oxygen can be generated by many different techniques. We looked at for portable PSA is what we are going to use, because that is little easier for both generation, maintenance, and fabrication, right? So we looked at that. How does this work? Again, the principle is very simple, but making it work the particular fashion was the challenge, and that's what our journey was. So basically, PSA, what happens, you have two container filled with a particular kind of zeolite with a particular chemistry and a particular size. You push air through one system. This particular bed of zeolite absorbs very forcefully only nitrogen and leaves out everything else. So what you are doing is you are separating nitrogen with everything else, and nitrogen is more than 70%, right? So hence you are separating oxygen. So what you do is one side you push it, it separates, you open, the nitrogen whatever was separated comes out, oxygen is left behind. While this is happening, the second chamber is opened and then that is pushed. So you keep doing, swing the pressure between one chamber to another chamber, so that you separate oxygen sequentially and collect it to one container, so that you can give it continuously. That's the most simplest explanation of oxygen concentrator, right? So here the dynamics of how much pressure you put, how much packing the zeolites are, and what time, the residence time for air to be inside the canister cartridge, and the mechanism, efficient mechanism of extracting the separated nitrogen. These are all the things that dictates the purity of oxygen and the stability of the system. So that is what took us actually 3-4 months to come to a stable system, which is what we did. So this is a schematic. These are the diagrams. Actually, you can get it from the web. It's available everywhere. You just Google it, you can get this. The right one is what we got it from WHO. Of course, as I said, we start modifying, more optimizing. This is a schematic, right? We started optimizing to understand better to this particular condition. Right? That's what we had done. So this is where we started with. We started with the steel. So we said this is a pressurized system. We need to have a steam. So we had a steam steel container. We started writing our own codes. We had single isolated valves, which was very much available everywhere. Then, of course, this was during the COVID time. We went all around, started getting various different components. I mean, this all we had to do on our own because of the first lockdown, right? So we are fortunate, lucky, because we are in Bangalore. We are able to connect to various different small companies and big companies. So this is one of them. Genetics, everybody knows they have fantastic valves. So this is what we started to use. Then we sourced various components. As I said, I'm showing you here the heat exchanger, valves. We first started the electronics with just using an Arduino, then Raspberry Pi, and then we realized all of these are fantastic, but then over a period of time, there is a drift that happens in the timing, the whole electronic system, because still, however robust this is still a hobby system. Hence, we started developing our own electronics. Of course, we did calibrate the flow, pressure, the purity, and things like that. So our journey of making various different versions of the system began. So this was the second version. Then the third version, we started using a simple water filter cartridge. Can we use that? Because it's olefinic material and it's biocompatible. So I don't need to worry about compatibility portion as we go along. So again, our software coding started to increase, make it more accurate, better, and things like that. So this again was really the optimization process where we had capability to change the timings and the whole mechanism of switching on and off, absorption and desorption process. That's what gave us an edge. We literally did minimum 1,000 different experiments before we came to an ideal performance, right? So again, parallelly, we started to working on oxygen sensors. So oxygen sensors, we actually, I'll show you at the end, which is another very important device where you need to really measure what percentage of oxygen that is coming. The literature says I connect all of this, I should get 90%. Whether I'm getting that or not is what we need to measure. And we found out that there are only few available, and that too, that's imported, and it's very expensive. So can we make our own oxygen sensor? So we, not the oxygen sensor, but the oxygen sensing unit. So we bought oxygen sensor from Honeywell. We created the complete electronics around it and then started calibrating. So that also was done parallelly. as I said, enough timing work that went through before optimizing to present condition. So we started getting, these were again early last April, May time, where we started to get above 90%. At 1 LPM, we are getting above 95%. We are not sure whether we are really getting it, because theoretically anything above 94% is almost you are reaching the limit, right? So, but this was very stable, right? You change the process something, you will see a change in oxygen output. So we were on the right track. So we got even for 10 LPM above 82%. Now we are around 85% for 10 LPM. So these are the different progress that happened. I will really go through a little quick, and then we can discuss at the end if there is any question. So these are various different versions that came along. This was the 4th version. This is actually look like a water filter what you have in home. This was still running with Raspberry Pi. This is when we started making our own electronics, where we started replacing actual relays for timing relays, because that had only a few lakhs operations. Then afterwards it starts to drift. So we created our own system, make it more robust, stable. So then we started with our limited understanding and our limited exposure to make a product. We started putting it together to make it look like a product that can be given out. This was the 5th version. Then this is what how build was for the 5th version. Then 6th version looked a little more compact, and then we started putting together better. Performance was, this is what the performance, within 180 seconds we are able to reach above 90%, and then we were able to control oxygen purity very well. We moved to the new platform. This was the, sorry, this is the handheld oxygen sensor where it was made in-house, and where we put a packaging, and then I will show you the packaging as we go along. Okay, this is the 7th version, where we have again almost the final version, and this is where we started to build. This is the 7th version which was there, and then we SID reach, we were able to rope in people who do product engineering, and then we started to put this together. We started to look which location, how does scientifically, technically, which position it should be there, those kinds of things. We came up with many different, actually the team which was looking at the design came up with many different designs. Of course, once that is happening, this was the last version. We said, we thought this is where we will stop at, but this is where we stop. This is the final version that has come out of our lab. This was the build process. This is how it looks like right now, where you have flow output, and I will just run a video of that.
Praveen, I think we may have lost you. This is Vasu here.
System.
Can we
actually?
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I mean, I thought we had lost you in between, but go ahead.
Okay. So yes. Can you hear me?
We missed you
Yes,
again.
we
So
can
last
hear you. Go ahead.
I can see that.
Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, we can see your screen, but we missed you for the last half a minute or so. Can you repeat?
Okay.
When you started the video, after that we have not The video didn't
can you
play
see
and
the-
we couldn't hear you.
Okay, can you see the could you see the video?
No, the video did not play. Can you do
Oh,
the video again?
sure. Let me do that.
Praveen, what we could do is, otherwise you
We
could
can
run
all
through your
mute
presentation.
our videos. We can mute our videos so that
Can you see the video now?
Yes,
Maybe
but
I will.
it's slow.
Okay,
I
what
think we
I'll
have
do is
the
maybe
bad
at
connection.
end of the talk I can show the video. It's
Yes.
basically showing how do you switch it on, what all the connections are there. I can come back to that later stage. Okay, I'll continue. So the
Go ahead.
performance was standardized. So the next few things that are most important is pre-clinical validation. Of course, TUV and UL certification. I think both Professor Vasu and Dr. Justin rightly said that there is absolutely no certification process from ICMR for oxygen concentrator. So there is a process to develop something, but there is some clinical validation to do that. There is some design of experiment that has been done. We are in discussion. Actually, right now, system is going to BMRCI for evaluating this. Once that is done, of course, TUV and UL will do the certification, but that is only for electrical safety or EMI shielding and things like that. But that won't do any oxygen or how it would perform clinically or kind of thing. So that is one. And since because of so much overwhelming response, IIC and SID has taken on itself to help us with this program. As I said, Times Group, SID team, it's called Tatpar. They have taken as a single point contact for taking this further. Any NDAs, licensing, technical discussion, any of these things they will do. Of course, I am always there to help any technical thing, but since making it a one single window would be helpful to taking this further. Right, that is that. Second, the challenges in this is there are 3-4 components. First, one of them is Zeolite. We have, I mean, you can get all of this data which I'm showing from web, but I'm telling you that these 4 components are the most critical components for a manufacturer. Zeolite is a major challenge right now because the demand. So there is an effort to get it at a central place, or groups together come together, take it, and then distribute kind of thing. I think there is enough push that also is coming from the government side. So I would suggest if somebody is interested to start making this, make a group, come with SID or any other group. Together we go to the as a source to a manufacturer and can get this. That is one. Second, compressor. This has to be a particular specification and above to get a particular purity. So there are many companies. This specification again, what I have put is what is available on the web. You can search on Google and then get it. But then more specification and more details, I can come back to you as we go along. Third one is the control board. Again, control board, I see a lot of DIY people all over India started to make their own, which is what we did almost 1.5 years ago. So I would suggest to anybody, instead of reinventing the wheel, you can go ahead with the control board what we have. It can be given to people as Professor Vasu suggested, the modes that we have. So instead of reinventing the wheel, you can go ahead, take this, including the firmware. All of this can be obtained through Tatpar, right? And the fourth one is valve. I showed you the picture of valve from Genetics. Genetics is a fantastic. I am sure they can also make, but there were some challenges in the actual design of that what was available. So we went with couple of fabricators to build a specific valve that is suitable for this. So we have done that exercise. So those things are all ready to take further. So the whole system was ready in last August, but because of the lack of interest for whatever reason, including everybody is saying the Chinese ones are available, why do we need this kind of thing, we had not done anything, but we went ahead with kept on modifying things. So for example, one of the things which we did was we incorporated this oxygen sensor inside the system itself, so that you can get all that, including the oxygen percentage data in a smartphone, so that that can be obtained to a doctor, right? So doctor need not wait, only know how much quantity and what time the oxygen was given. He can also know what percentage it was given. So that's one thing that was developed last 1 year. In addition to that, as I said, handheld oxygen sensor, which we have in-house built and demonstrated, which is pretty stable, robust, and way less expensive than what is available in the market. With that, again, there are only one standard that is available, 80601, which we try to accommodate everything in what we are doing. In addition to that, the test that is suggested by TUV or UL is what is listed. So my point of showing this slide is we have done enough background work to look at what testings needs to be done, which is underway. So probably in a few weeks, all of this will be complete. But if somebody is interested to take this further, this is the right time. Start lining up the schematic design and supply chain management, which is the most critical factor in all of these things. Okay, I think with that I will stop. If there are any questions, please let me know.
Professor Raghavan, we have lots of questions. I think, Professor Raghavan, you are on mute.
Okay, thanks. I believe I was muted there. I believe there are lots of questions. We are running a little short on time. Maybe we can finish the next two presentations quickly and can take all the questions in a single shot if that is fine. But I'm guessing there'll be one question, Praveen, if you could answer this very quickly, that would be upmost on everybody's minds. You started by saying that most of the concentrators available in the market couldn't go beyond 40 or 50% oxygen, but you managed to go at 5 SLPM to beyond 90 and at 10 SLPM to beyond 85. So what is the critical design difference in your concentrator that enables this difference? Praveen, are you there?
Yeah. So there are two things. One is definitely the electronics and the dynamics of the connections. So electronics actually giving the stability of the switching and controlling that over a long period of time, what made it more stable. So if there is a switching problem, even for one, it misfires in between, then you will have a problem with oxygen mixing with nitrogen, and then your percentage goes down. So that control was one of our major thing.
Okay, so the key thing, if I may summarize what you said, is electronic control of the pressure swing adsorption mechanism, correct?
Correct.
That's the key. Excellent. So I think we will now move on to Professor Sushoban Awasthi, who is now leading the ventilator effort. And the story of the ventilator kind of mirrors the story of the concentrator in terms of all the challenges people have had to go through during COVID times, lockdown, and so on to get it done. And both the concentrator and the ventilator were very strongly supported by Professor Gurumurthy and the Society for Innovation and Development at IISc. So with that, over to you, Sushoban.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible. Let me just quickly share my screen. Just 1 second. Okay, okay, can you see my screen by any chance, Vasu?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I'm wondering if the organizers have to enable screen sharing for Sushovan.
That's been done, Professor Raghuvan. Dr. C, you would have received a tab for making you the presenter.
Yes, but okay, there it is. Microsoft.
We can see your screen now, Sushovan. Go ahead.
Thank you. So, okay. So, thank you for joining. So, I'm going to talk about Indigenous ICU Ventilator. The story started last year when there was a panic and there was a general understanding that there's going to be a shortage of ventilators in fight against COVID. So, we started developing one. And there was a lot of support from IIC, etc. But before we even get to the details, maybe what is a ventilator? This is the simplest figure I could find online. Essentially, ventilator allows you to breathe artificially. It's a system that pushes air into your lungs and then sucks that air out, and does this periodically so that you don't have to function. You don't have to do this on your own, because oftentimes during
Sushovan, can I interrupt you for a minute? So, sure. What I see on the screen is a black box under user feedback at Manipal Hospital. Okay, that's better.
All right. Okay. So what a ventilator is it's basic. I hope you can. Yeah. So it just pushes air in and out, so the patient doesn't have to breathe. When we talk about an ICU ventilator, what that means is the patient is under sedation and is not breathing at all on their own, and the machine is the only one that is breathing for them. So it's a critical piece of equipment. It needs to be designed very carefully so that neither do you damage the lung and you do deliver reliable breaths, because clearly the patient will not survive if even a few breaths are missed. So that is the main challenge. The fundamental design of such a system would be relatively simple. The complexity comes from the control logic, the alarm systems, and making it reliable. So we started in March 2020. The thing looked like an octopus. This is something on the left. Over a period of the next few months, we were able to get into a system that looked like something on the right that met the performance specifications for what a ventilator should be doing. And at that point, for various reasons, there was no interest in the market to sort of take this any forward. So we left it at that and moved on with our regular jobs. And that is where it stood as TRL8. In fact, if you're interested, I urge you to click on the QR code on the screen. It will take you to a YouTube video that we had uploaded back in June of 2020. Where we are today is we have a system which we believe is at TRL9. And it's we have assembled two such systems. One of them we sent to Manipal. I'll show you a video later. And one of them we are planning to send to Intertech, which is our partner in certifying the system. Because the critical piece again is to get it certified, the critical piece, because it is a critical piece of equipment. You can look at the specifications. If you're familiar with ventilations, they would mean something to you. If you're not familiar with ventilator, that doesn't matter. The summary is that this is a ventilator that can be effective in the fight against COVID and can be used in an ICU setting. The target cost that we are looking at for this ventilator in terms of just its cost is probably around 1.5 lakhs, plus minus some number depending upon the exact components, which would make it extremely competitive to any ventilator that is on the market. Ventilators of similar specifications start somewhere between 6-7 lakhs in the market and go all the way up to 25 lakhs. So this is just a quick video. I hope you can see it, but this is the system getting tested at Manipal. Again, this is not certified testing. This was not on a patient. This was on a artificial lung. The point of the exercise was to get feedback from Manipal on what they think is the system, what can be improved, what they like about it, what they don't like about it. I think Justin can correct me, but to summarize, they think the system works. It would do the job on a patient if it was connected, provided we can scale it up, provided we can get it certified, and provided that it gets into their hands. So we are on a very ambitious timeline. We started on May 1st, and within this month, we plan to make 25 of these designs that can then be given as prototypes to whoever wants to test them or make them. The goal is to, by 25th or 26th of this month, we should have 25 ventilators in hand. And for that, we have partnered with Intertech, which is a certification agency. We hope to get a basic certification started. It would not be finished. The full certification takes 3 months, but the basic performance certification would start somewhere on May 15th. And In parallel, we plan to manufacture 25 ventilators that Vaswind will make, who's our manufacturing partner. Anup will tell more about that in his presentation. One of the things with ventilators are that because they are critical care equipment, not everybody can make a ventilator. Even the place where it's manufactured must be medically qualified. So it's very important to partner with people who have experience in making medical equipment, because the certification and the manufacturing details are significantly different from a typical manufacturing system. For all of this, we need money. Vasmed has kindly agreed to fund the investment of the first 10 ventilators. So that is something they will make at their own cost. But in order to get to that 25 number, we need to make 15 more. And just the BOM cost of that would come out to be around 21 lakhs. Some amount of design modification will have to be done so that this is a mass manufacturable system. I mean, when we make 1 or 2 units, there are things we can do on the fly. But in a manufacturable setting, you have more thought needs to be put out in how will you calibrate the system, test the system, and a lot of tooling and jigs need to be made for that. But finally, and the most important is the testing and the certification. The relevant standard is IEC 60601, and full testing, which will take a couple of months, will cost somewhere around 10 lakhs. So that is what we want to embark upon. Whatever 25 ventilators we make during this whole process will be sold at cost. We don't intend to make money off it. Because I'm short on time, I'll just get to the summary. So in summary, an ICU grade ventilator has been developed. It's a robust control system. It has been tested by doctors. In terms of user feedback, it works. What we need to do is get it certified, start mass manufacturing it, and we aim to at least manufacture 25 of these units by 30th of May. What we are looking for are manufacturing partners, people who are certified in manufacturing medical equipment, specifically ventilators, or are interested in getting into the area. All these designs will be available, all the IP will be available. We just need your partnership. And all this partnership will come with some amount of investment, so that investment. This is just the team. I just flashed their names. It's too large to mention it, but I would be remiss to take the credit for designing or developing the system. It was a very large group effort that included people like Justin, who gave their valuable time despite being overworked in COVID, and also Anup and Manjunath, who gave the industrial expertise to get this all done. Thank you. I'll take any questions you have.
Thank you, Sushovan. Maybe we'll come to questions together at the end. I think it's time that we quickly move over to Anup. But I think before we do that, it's important enough to state that the ventilator, if not properly made or used, can kill a person. And that's why we are being very careful here. Just to put that in perspective, the pressure in which all of us are sitting right now is what we call 1 atmosphere, or it's about 1,000 centimeters of water column. Now, if a ventilator pushes more than 30 centimeters of water column into your lungs above this atmosphere pressure, and it doesn't do that in a controlled fashion, it can kill you. So that is the kind of control we are talking about in these machines, which is very critical. And so I don't want people who are thinking of taking it up to manufacture it lightly. Okay, it's taken a lot of time to make it, build it, and give us the confidence to say, okay, the world can go ahead, build it, and somebody can use it. Okay, with that, it's over to you, Anup. We have been working with him, like Sushovan pointed out, from day one, along with CAS Technologies, and they have been helping us.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity, and we are really looking forward to take these products onto the market along with the IIC team and other teams who are interested in taking this forward. I'll just give me 1 minute. I will just share my screen. Let me know once you can see the screen, please.
We can see it.
We can see it, Anup.
Okay. So just give a background of Vasmed. We are primarily a cardiology products manufacturer. We do therapy and diagnostic devices. And we were established in 2018 in India, but we have a facility in UAE that has been operating from 2003 onwards. We are an ISO 13485 certified company with CDSO approval for manufacturing medical devices. And our UAE facility, we already are having the PMDA Japanese approval. We have all the products that is CE marked. So just to, in a nutshell, what I just want to highlight is that we are a medical device manufacturer with certification and experience in taking these products into the market. We have in our Bangalore facility, we have around 25,000 square feet specialized manufacturing facility that includes a clean room of around 3,500 square feet. This is an ISO 7 clean room, and we have experience manufacturing complex and medical devices, including implantable devices and also medical electronics. And also we are a grant recipient from National Biomedical Mission for innovative products. So we are working along with Indian Institute of Center for Nanosciences for some of the very smallest sensors in the MEM sensors, which is used in measuring pressure inside the heart. So that is our association with the IIC from last 2 years. And we also have experience in IEC certification. We have done it for multiple products from our side. Just coming on to the bomb construction. So just to give you a background in terms of what we are doing for the current projects is that when we started in 2020 March, our main target was to get an ICU ventilator that can be manufactured within India. And we were associated with the SENS team, and they have been putting an amazing effort with regard to getting those products out by last September. And we have been discussing on taking it forward. Unfortunately, at the time, there was not that much pull in the market when we were discussing with various government bodies and other organizations. So it got a little delayed, but at the same time, the interest is still there. And now we really want to take this forward. And we are already sponsoring around 10 ventilators to be fully assembled under our investment. And also, then when we came to the oxygen concentrators, we were working in terms of 25 oxygen concentrators to be also manufactured from our investment. So just looking at the bomb itself, so we have been working on the last couple of weeks on improving on the bomb and looking at the DFM on the device. And as such, we have identified almost all the sources for the bomb and for the current 25 numbers, and also to scale up of 100 numbers. So majority, around 30% of the bomb is in imported components, and around 10 to 15% is electronics, and remaining are all sourced within India. So we have engaged with most of the suppliers for this, and the orders has already gone out for this 25 numbers, and we really want to scale it up to the 100 numbers at the earliest possible. On the ventilators also, like Professor Shushoban has pointed out, we have been working for the last 1 year plus on this. And now the device is a stable device, and the composition of the bomb itself is around 30% of the electronics, around remaining coming on to fabricated components, and also the pneumatic components. Now, from the scale-up perspective, we have already allocated an ESG facility around 20,000 square feet within our facility. We are a medium-sized company. We have around 50 production staff right now working with us, and we have allocated a team specifically for this product. And the team can assemble on our first assessment around 20 to 30 devices per day. And as we add more team members, we can scale it up further upwards. The supply source, as I have been informed, we have already identified, including for a couple of challenges as Professor Praveen was identifying, especially on zeolite and compressors. So this zeolite, we have identified a lithium-based supplier and already placed for 150 kilos, and we are working with them to increase the quantities. And second is with regard to getting the compressors also, we had 25 is already ordered, 75 we have requested a back order on that, so it will take some time for that to come in, but still we are hoping that by the time this 25 is completed and we are able to take it to the market, we can scale it up to the 100. So from that, the critical imports with longer lead time also, we have reached out to around 100, and we are looking at local sourcing also, but at the same time, we don't want to affect the performance of the device, which the Professor's Praveen's team has worked on. And from our side, from Basmet side, what we are offering is we have worked on, as I said in the beginning, like we are sponsoring the 25 oxygen concentrators and 10 ventilators. And we are also supporting the team with regard to certification and clinical testing. We have experience in that. From the enclosure side, we are working on the DFM so that manufacturing is made smoother. So our mechanical team is working along with Professor Praveen's team also, and also some of the fabricators locally in Bangalore on this. So we bring in the medical device expertise, the ISO certifications, and the CDSO approval for this manufacturing these products, so that the product meets to all the international requirements. And this is a good product with regard to performance. What we want to make sure is that from the manufacturability also, it comes out as equivalent to any other medical device. Couple of challenges we are facing. Like I said, we are a medium-sized company. Working capital is something that we need to look at. Already we have committed for the 25 oxygen concentrators and 10 ventilators, but we would look at some pre-ordering and distribution support to scale this up further. There are a few challenges like from the announced lockdown that we need to look at, and also a few imports are coming in. So we would request any support that can be provided to speed up this. So like Professor Shobhan was referring, that our target is the 30th of May, where we would like to get these products, whatever we have committed to get it into the finished assembly. From our side, we have a testing lab also established primarily for the ventilators. So we have the certification, calibrated certification system is available, and also calibrated lungs are available. So just make sure that all the ventilators, and we can use this for oxygen concentrators also, because it has a calibrated oxygen sensors also integrated to it. So this setup is available, and we can scale up this testing as the volume of production increases. And just a quick update, as Professor Srinivasan has selling. So we just had, our UAE team were recipients of NASA Jpl ventilator last year. So this was developed by NASA Jpl for supporting the COVID situation. Just to differentiate between this ventilator, this is an emergency ventilator with manual support. I just want to highlight this because this is also available, and we have assembled multiple units of this, and any support that this can give in the current situation, we will be happy to give these products to the market. And so this is a basic emergency ventilator compared to the ICU ventilator. So the feature sets is only one simple mode that is available, and multiple controls are manual, but still it will meet to any pre-ICU requirement. This ventilator will meet the requirement. This is having an FDA EUA authorization. So that is just a summary. So this is my contact number. I manage the operations for Wasmed, and my email address is varghese@wasmed.in, and mobile is 9900263325. So anybody who is interested in partnering, or I already have a lot of requests that came in, and we are happy to support. Like we said, we are not looking this as a profit enterprise. We are looking at how to support IISc and to take it into the market so that it helps the market situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anup. So Bindu, I think from our side, we are done. I request you to take over from here and coordinate the rest of the session. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Raghavan and colleagues from IISc and Wasmed. We have an overwhelming number of questions, but in the interest of time,
one request,
Pamela.
So Pavan Agarwal from would like to take the stage and make a few comments.
Sure. Thank you, Pamela. So we have Mr. Pavan Agarwal, Secretary, Ministry of Commerce, with us, and I'll request Asif to please make him. We will enable his speaker link so that he can make his remarks. Welcome, Mr. Agarwal. We'll just give us a bit. We will make you. We will enable your audio.
So he's here in his personal capacity.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Agarwal, if you could raise your hand, and my colleague would then make you enable your audio, please.
I have given permission.
Okay, great. Thank you. Mr. Agarwal.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So, Pamela, I think this was really fantastic. So much of work has been done, and your initiative of bringing so many stakeholders together on one platform is very encouraging. And I'm also very proud that the Indian Institute of Science has taken lead in this, because I have very close association with the Indian Institute of Science when I was in the Ministry of HRD, responsible for the Institute of Science Affairs in the Ministry of HRD, now Ministry of Education. So kudos to Institute of Science for making it happen. Now, obviously, I think the importance and urgency of doing what we are trying to do is all very well understood and stated. I can, even though Pamela mentioned that I'm here in my personal capacity, but I think these days personal and official capacities are all getting mixed up, So we are in a crisis where whatever we can contribute, we should. So as Special Secretary Logistics in the Ministry of Commerce and Industries, we have under the DPIIT a startup unit, a startup ecosystem, and I'll be very happy to bring those folks into the fold to support this work that is being done. I will talk to the additional secretary concerned so that more and more startups, and can be reached out, and we can do things at scale. Because what is needed today is being able to do things at scale. From the logistics point of view, I think you mentioned about some challenges on GST, some challenges around logistics, imports. So that is my personal responsibility. And in case there are specific issues that are pointed out, my office will be very happy to coordinate to ensure that it happens. On funding, obviously, I'm not able to commit any funding from the government side on this, but I'm sure we can figure out how that can be organized. But more importantly, I'm sure that many people on this call and many people that I know of, they would be interested in making initial investments, at least to take up these initiatives to a little larger scale. I have on this call invited Mr. Sanjay Jain from Electro, which is a mid-sized company in equipment manufacturing, and they have a fantastic track record in terms of turnaround times and manufacturing capabilities. And he has already conveyed to me on social media that he would be willing to fund this initiative to the next stage of development. So I will connect Sanjay, or if Sanjay is there on the line, we can also get him for 2 minutes on the call. I leave it to you, Bindu and Pamela. That's all from my side, and full support and from the government of India. You can count on me as your point of contact in Delhi, because all of you are based largely in Bengaluru. So I think I can become your single point of contact in Delhi to take care of issues with approvals, with ICMR, with drug controller, and everyone else. I've already reached out to ICMR, who have confirmed that they have nothing. They have, they have no direct role in this space. But in case there is a role, we can definitely facilitate that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So thanks Pawan, for those very encouraging words, and taking in your typical style, taking the ownership and making yourself available. I think a lot of the people in the audience, I see we have more than 220 people in the audience right now. So people will definitely be reaching out to you. Thank you very much. So Bindu,
Yeah.
you want to take it from there?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Agarwal, and thank you, Pamela. I see Mr. Sanjay Jain is there in the audience, and if Mr. Jain would like to make any remarks, we could enable your audio. Mr. Jain.
You can unmute Mr. Jain.
Yeah, I'll do that. Mr. Jain, Mr. Sanjay Jain, you're self-muted. If you could unmute yourself and if you would want to make any remarks at this point of time.
I have
Hi,
requested him.
good afternoon. Am I audible now?
Yes. Yes, you are.
Yeah, so it's definitely an incredible journey, I'll say, from India perspective, and considering the crisis we are in right now, nothing could have been better than this opportunity which has come up where we can actually do a lot. So I've been in touch with China also, and there is a crisis everywhere in terms of availability of equipment. So if we can do something in India, we would be very keen to support. I have taken details of Mr. Anu. I'll get in touch with him. And as a company, whatever we can extend support, even including logistics, GST, everything we are willing to help you out, sir. Including fund support to reach out to the masses. We would be keen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jain, for the offer. Yeah, Pamela.
I think we can go to the next presentation. Sanjay, you may be interested in the other presentation also. We have another company which has a concentrator ready, and let's hear from them. And they may need some support also.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Mr. Jain, for that very generous offer. Mr. Himanshu Gupta is our next speaker, and he will be talking about his experience of picking up oxygen concentrators from a manufacturer that he's partnering with and supplying to the hospitals. So that part of the journey. Mr. Gupta, over to you.
Thank you. So I'm actually a part of an organization called Roundtable India, which is a pan-India not-for-profit zero overhead charitable organization for people between the age of 18 to 40, which believes in service through fellowship. We have our presence in more than 100 cities, having 4,500 members spread over 300 chapters. And our long-term project is actually Freedom Through Education, wherein we are focusing on educating underprivileged children by building infrastructure in rural schools, mostly in partnership with the various state governments. We have actually so far built more than 7,100 classrooms in more than 3,000 schools across the country, impacting 7.86 million underprivileged children. So apart from this initiative, we also run a lot of smaller charitable initiatives from time to time, and currently we are doing a lot of COVID relief work. So we have actually set up a national COVID relief task force, which is set up in more than 100 cities. So the network is in 100 cities, and we are helping in organizing the needy and the patients medicines, oxygen beds, ICU beds, injections, ventilators, plasma, ambulance, and the most importantly, which is needed by them, is oxygen concentrators. So we have been doing this effort of organizing it. We are also looking at setting up, raising funds to set up various facilities in various hospitals and through the help of other NGOs and government bodies. So it is basically in this search of ours for the oxygen concentrators is when we actually researched and found out that whatever was available today in the country was only Chinese concentrators. So all these Chinese concentrators coming into the market are being sold at fancy prices, and that too with advance booking. And once you make a payment today in 100% advance, the machine will be delivered to you in 15 days from the date of payment. And there is no guarantee from the manufacturer, because obviously he is Chinese. There is no warranty, there is no after sale service. Most of the importers have made fancy brochures giving their own specs and claiming warranties, claiming after sale services, which are actually not from the manufacturer. And they have been importing it, even not knowing what is the output of the concentrator, what is the purity percentage or concentration percentage of the concentrator, and these machines have been flooded in the market. We very well understand that the need of the concentrators is there today. There is a shortage. That's why the masses in our country have no choice but to buy these concentrators without even knowing whether the 5-liter machine or the 7-liter machine or the 10-liter machine which they are keeping at their homes will actually be useful for them when it is needed by them. And that is basically when we try to see if we can actually get a good imported product. So out of all the products being imported, I would not say that all products are bad, but yes, maybe 20% of them are there who can still help you in that initial phase when you are needing the concentrator before reaching the hospital, or even post COVID treatment care at home. Now, in this whole journey, we try to see and find out whether we have Indian manufacturers for these oxygen concentrators, and we were quite surprised that today, apart from some names which are popular in India, which is Philips or BPL, there is no indigenous Indian manufacturer in the country who's selling or making oxygen concentrators. This search actually made me reach out to a friend of mine who's also a member of our organization, Mr. Rajesh Raghunandan, is also there in the call today, wherein he mentioned that they are in the final stage of actually manufacturing and launching Indian oxygen concentrators, which is being manufactured in Tamil Nadu, and they are in fact awaiting the final certifications from some of the government bodies for them to start producing in mass and selling it in the Indian market. So that is what basically I wanted to share from the NGO point of view, or from people who are actually working on the field, who are trying to help the people, because the fact is that today we are getting hundreds of calls wherein from people across the country saying, I need the oxygen concentrator today, I need it today. Even the worst part is, because there are no concentrators available in the Indian market, they're all being imported. The people, the same importers who are bringing these concentrators, they're actually for ready stock, they're selling it at 3 times, 4 times the price which is there, versus the price which you would be paying them in advance and then booking and getting it after 15 days. So and the people are buying it. I mean, there are calls we get saying they're offering 5 times the money and saying, we just need it today, just get it to us at any cost. So I think there is definitely a dire need for these Indian oxygen concentrators, more companies of Indian oxygen concentrators to come into the market. One, to obviously make good this supply gap which is there, and also to ensure that people are not fooled by buying wrong Chinese products thinking they have got an oxygen concentrator, but when it comes to use for them, it's not used. I also got some feedback, in fact, by some people, that they bought this oxygen concentrator and their doctor, when they checked it or they showed it to them, they said that this is not even releasing oxygen. The output is not even oxygen, just normal air. So that's the situation today. So yeah, so on that note, I would like to request Mr. Rajesh to take over from here.
Thank you, Himanshu, for setting the context. Mr. Rajesh Raghunandan, your partner who's manufacturing oxygen concentrators, he will speak next. Mr. Raghunandan, you are self-muted. If you could unmute yourself, please.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much. First of all, good afternoon to all the panelists present here, and I think it's a wonderful forum to understand the need of the hour at this point is oxygen concentrators across the country. And on the same pursuit, I mean, I've been engaged in distribution of a few of the medical wellness products and medicines, predominantly based on cancer-related products and hygiene products. And in the pursuit of the urgency which is required for oxygen concentrators in the country, kind of led me towards looking out for an Indian manufacturer. And that's when, as Himanshu just mentioned, that there are not many, or not even anybody at this point, at least in our search, we were completely unable to locate an Indian manufacturer. And at the same point is where we are a team of young enthusiasts who are also working on to produce an Indian made in India oxygen concentrator was being developed in Tamil Nadu. And I think we have done all the prototypes, and we are in the phase of getting the final certifications done from a few of the government bodies. I would like to play a small a quick video if you can get access, so that you can just show the last prototype, which is ready to go to the market kind of a stuff. Would it be possible to give me a screen access?
We will give screen access to you, Rajesh.
Yeah.
Please check. You would have received a message on your screen. I'll request my colleague Asif to help you.
Yes, I did get it.
Okay.
Screen. We can see your screen.
Anji, boliye.
So how do we act this being a
You can open your presentation.
So we can see your screen. You can just play it and it will be seen by us.
Hello. बात हुई उससे?
Yeah, you want to enable the audio?
नंबर भेज दो.
आपका audio low है. You can increase the audio if you want.
We'll have one of our technical persons to talk about this just after the speak.
Rajesh, do you want to maximize that video screen on your desktop or laptop?
Full screen. You may want to go to full screen. So can you regulate the flow level up to how many liters per minute you have?
Yeah. So we have two models presently that we're working on. One is a 7-liter model and one is a 15-liter model. I have Mr. Manoj Pannuswamy on the call with us. He's our technical head and he's the man behind the entire design. Can you kindly give access to Mr. Manoj so that?
Yeah, Mr. Manoj, if you can switch on your audio and video also.
Manoj, can you hear us?
Manoj needs to unmute himself from the screen and then he can speak.
He have unmuted himself. Can you speak, sir?
Manoj, you're there?
We are not able to listen to you, sir.
Manoj, can you just unmute yourself, please?
Or maybe Manoj can come back later. We can proceed from here, and whenever he is available, we can do that.
Yeah, so coming back to the thing, yes, so that is what the development has been, and we are awaiting a few certifications at this point. So once the certifications are on, we'll be ready to go to the market. And yeah, as the biggest challenge at this point is these Chinese concentrators. We have been flooded in the market. And unfortunately, the little knowledge that people have about concentrators in terms of what is the right product to use, and would the concentrator work at what level of the COVID patient? Is it a home machine, or it is something that has to be used at a hospital? I think these are the general questions, or these are the most important questions which are there in people's minds at this point. And most importantly, the after sales service support. And these are the things which are, and since this being a life-changing device, our primary concentration is to bring the best product to the people, and the focus is absolutely on that. And we will definitely look forward for all the support from the panelists who are present here to give us, the way forward in terms of be it a certification or be it procurement of components or raw material. Though we have all the things in place, yes, we definitely need all your support to make sure that we cater to the maximum number of people. And let me see if is Manoj back to is Manoj, can you are you able to take a tube, because I'm not the technical person behind the thing. Manoj is the technical man who would be able to answer more of the technical questions. I guess there is some network issue with Manoj.
So what is the name of this company? It's Oxygen, huh?
The brand's name is Oxygen.
The
you
company?
can type your details in the chat so that people can access that later, and they can reach out to you wherever required, so that we can.
Absolutely.
Mr. Manoj, can you rejoin yourself? I think it may work. We can't able to listen you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so in the meantime, do you want to take a few questions? And when Manoj comes in, we will, let him speak. So, Bindu, you want to take a few questions?
Please, we can do that.
Yeah, thank you very much. So Rajesh and Himanshu and the other panelists, we have a whole set of questions, and I'll request my colleague Anurag to help step in here and help with the questions. To start with, if we could pick up questions on the supply chain piece of this entire equation. So Anurag, there were some questions that we received regarding the raw material availability of raw material sourcing of raw material. So would you like to ask those questions, Anurag, to the panelists?
Sure. So one of the important thing which has been asked is regarding zeolite. So zeolite with 13x with 3 mm bead size is widely available in India with lower cost kg. Can we use 3 mm size bead? Can we achieve 93% purity with this size? Zeolite is one of the critical components which someone has asked the question. And oxygen, liquid or gas, another question has been asked by someone. Someone has also asked, they have nitrogen converters with them. How can they use that to convert it into oxygen generators from nitrogen generators? So these are maybe two questions can be answered first. We can go to the other question later. So anyone from the panel may like to answer this question?
Yeah,
I think Praveen should be able to take up the first zeolite question very easily.
Yeah. So 3 mm for oxygen concentrator cannot be used, and also 13x either sodium based or without sodium based can be used, but it is not efficient. Once it's not efficient, you will have to change the volume of zeolite that is used. That means you have to make a bigger cartridge. But if you make a bigger cartridge, the whole backflow has to be changed. So your pump will change, heat, thermal management change. So everything will change. Even though theoretically you can make oxygen out of this, to get again complete optimization process has to happen. And I haven't come across any other oxygen concentrators anywhere in the world who are used either sodium or without sodium 13x to produce oxygen. So lithium based 0.4 to 0.8 is the most important for converting. Over.
So the connected question is, from the Indian Army, one of the officers have asked, we have nitrogen generators, PSAs, and they want guidance on how they can convert those nitrogen generators into oxygen generators. Is it possible? Can any guidance be given to them?
I think there's one group from IIT Bombay has successfully worked on it. So they can go to them. But if there are somebody here, even nitrogen generator works in this on the same principle, we can explore. That is definitely a good option. Not just nitrogen generation units somewhere else, but I was even thinking, why not two more options? One is nitrogen generation in petrol pumps, right, where they use it for filling the vehicles. So we could explore that also. I'm not sure how much successful that will be. That is one. Second, even this all the we can parallelly start looking at the instrument that has come from China, which is not giving more than 40%. Is there a way we can modify that? Because most of the components will be there. Probably some modification could be required. So for an emergency reason, both of these can be looked at. Over.
Okay, thank you. So there's another question regarding the control system specs of the oxygen generator. So would the IC be able to share this with the entrepreneurs if they want to?
Sure, specs, it is there on the, as I said, if you go to Tatpar IISc, you can get all the specs. We can share the specs also with everybody. Sharing the specs is not a problem at all.
Okay, so I'll just step in here. The control system, the module that has been developed by IISc. So would you be willing to share the design that that particular design, the firmware, with folks who might be interested?
Not willing. 100% we will share. As Professor Vasu put it, there are ways to do that. Let us do it on the proper channel. So Tatpar, as I said, is a single source of contact for oxygen concentrator, can take up all of these questions immediately. So I would suggest anybody who wants to take up any of these things, please connect with Tatpar.
So can you share the details about whom to connect or the SPOC whom the entrepreneurs or anyone else who is interested can connect, so they can reach out to the person in the chat window?
Sure. Yeah, okay.
So there's another question regarding who will certify them. There are a number of varieties or makes available from China. So can TSDSI certify them, or which is the organization who can certify those Chinese imports? And in India, when we are making it, then who certifies them in India? It's a related question. Thank you.
Number one, I can say TSDSI is not a certification body, but maybe Professor Vasu can share with us, or Anup can share with us what is the certification mechanism.
Right. So I think for the oxygen generator, Praveen, if I'm not wrong, has sent it for certification. I don't know if it is the eventual government certification to a company called TUV. Is that correct, Praveen? Praveen,
yes.
Are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
TUV,
so
only electrical and EMI.
Okay.
Just to add to that, this is Anup here. Just to add to that, both TUV and Intertech can certify oxygen concentrators against the standard medical requirements. They have actually they have given a code also with regard to the testing they can do. We can share the code to anybody who is interested.
Okay.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. And there was I think there was a related question around the timelines for this certification process. Do you have, once you submit the prototype, how much time does the lab take? And are there only two labs, TUV and Intertech, in the country for doing this?
This is Anup again. The 2 weeks is time that is TUV and Intertech has asked for the emergency use certification. So there are two types of certification that can be gone. It's a full-fledged certification or emergency certification. Like Professor Praveen was saying, the emergency certification primarily look at basic safety and critical performance certain elements, but that should be adequate to ensure that the product performs as intended. But there is a detailed certification also that I'm not clear in terms of the full timeline as of now. But there will be other bodies. These are the two bodies we have reached out to. There are a lot of other medical device certifying bodies. Once we start to engage with them, I'm sure they will be able to provide more details.
With the emergency certification, can you do trials in hospitals?
That is left to the hospital. Actually, this product is proven safe in terms of the performance and safety of the product. So what we discussed with the hospitals here is that it should be, they can try, test out the device. But I'm not sure if there is any government specific requirement, but like Professor Praveen has updated in his presentation, we have not seen any specific guideline from the government for the oxygen concentrators.
Yeah, it's correct, Luke, that there is no recommendation from the government or ICMR. So this is where I think we need help. We can get our heads together, get ICMR on board, and then see how to do this. But presently, there are none.
If I may,
anybody from ICMR in the audience? Can they raise their hand? Do we have anybody from ICMR? Anurag, Bindu, do you know anybody from ICMR in the audience?
Yeah, so we.
Yeah, please, Bindu, go ahead.
If the person from ICMR who was supposed to if there's any representative from ICMR, kindly raise your hand. And if you would like to make any remarks at this point of time.
I may be able to make a comment before the person is identified. I'm Justin Gopaldas, one of the intensivists from Manipal Hospital.
Yes, Dr. Gopaldas, please go ahead.
So there is a guidance in the sense that all equipment that is used in the hospital has to be approved by the Drug Controller of India. It doesn't mean that it's a drug, but any medical device. So that certification, if and when there is that certification from Drug Controller or once that certification is there, the device doesn't need any further checks and can be used in a clinical practice as a standard of care. When we do not have a Drug Controller of India's approval, the next thing is that it is used as a research with the vaccines. They are being used, but they're being used in a research mode to some extent, some of the vaccines. So the same way, these devices are written up following the current safety checks that has already been done, saying that the equipment is safe and a laboratory settings, and that individual hospital or a bigger organizations could give the ethics approval and a scientific clearance for them to be used in a controlled manner, or most likely in a shorter frame of mind, to prove further clarity on what we call as a patient-related integration. So now they go from bench to the bedside. And with that, DCGI approval will become a lot more easier when they actually apply for the DCGI approval. And that's the phase that we are with the IIC projects, that we are in process of writing it up through the ethics committees of our hospital to make sure that they go through in a research mode in the step one. And the minute that usage, clinical usage, is deemed safe, as well as the other electrical and computer software compatibilities, the DCGI would then grant an unlimited use as a
Okay, so there are two general knowledge questions probably. That is, what concentration of oxygen is desirable? Whether 50% oxygen level is better compared to normal air, or is anything lesser than 80% oxygen as good as normal air? And which oxygen concentrator should people take from home? 5 LPM one or 10 LPM one? Or what is the parameter to judge by a common person from what is available in the market? Anyone who can answer this?
I think as the scientists have already pointed out, it's all in the details rather than the brochure. That's as I see, one of my colleagues this morning wanted my opinion on 5-liter concentrator that he wanted to buy for himself at home, and then I was trying to look at the brochure. Now that I'm aware of zeolites and the technologies that are going through on the software, and I'm obviously not able to find any of those details on any of those submissions that are there on the company website or otherwise. So it is very difficult to advise whether you take 5 liters or 10 liters. And I guess at the end of the day, a good 5 liters is as good as a not so good 10 liters, or probably better, is the take-home message there. And so finding this in Indian market with so many different varieties, so many different companies, and either are trading partners for overseas products or indigenously made products. So that's a tough question to ask, number one. Number two is that what we want to know is the end product where patient's oxygen saturation is desired. That's probably the target, let's say. It isn't about 2 liters, 4 liters, 4 liters. And so at the end of the day, a 5-liter one or a 10-liter one, as long as they are providing the right numbers, and if it is going to match the patient's need, that's all it matters. It doesn't matter what number you're giving. The higher the number, the earlier you should be at the hospital. That's the next take-home message. It isn't like I think one of the panelists have correctly pointed out. This is at the window where you are being used in a control setting like a hospital or a COVID care center. The second option is that you're buying time until you get a hospital bed at home or outside home. Number three is that post-COVID, where you are still dependent on oxygen, but you are in a static phase, and that then use. So these are the sort of 3 or 4 common scenarios where we would use the concentrators, and that's what makes it a lot more controlled, and it an outcome where we are looking at the patient's saturation rather than anything else. Thank you.
Okay, so
Dr. Justin, is there some kind of guidance we can, as you said that there are no clear guidelines from ICMR or DGCI on oxygen concentrators today. So can we draft on what is desirable between the manufacturers and the hospitals?
So at this point of time, ICMR obviously doesn't interfere with the Drug Control of India, and Drug Control of India has the overall responsibility to say the safety and validity of a device or a drug. And ICMR guideline says that ICMR has the right at this point to say use additional oxygen devices, and it doesn't specify what, because it is left to the resources available at individual centers or healthcare provider. And that's unfortunately as broad as ICMR can go, because they cannot dictate saying that when you're on 2 liters, please use concentrator, not use the online or a piped gas. They cannot do that. But I mean, I guess at this point of time, as a part of healthcare professionals armamentarium, we are trying to use resources in a way that would make the pandemic more tolerable and less injurious to others. And that's the take-home message. I'm not so sure if anybody could clearly make a recommendation about oxygen concentrators, particularly when we don't have any indigenous ones, and most of the ones that are available in the market has such a wide variability.
Yeah, but when they're being imported, there should be some certification, right? So people are just throwing money and buying stuff which is junk. Hospitals are getting them and junking them. So how do you stop that?
So at this point of time, hospitals majority of the probably 98% of the concentrator use is in private homes, not in hospitals pre-pandemic, and it has all been used for individuals who are oxygen dependent because of chronic lung or heart problems, and they are not necessarily a standard of equipment in hospitals, and probably are being used in hospitals as a way to titrate them when they go home. rather than is the only use till now. And that's why there hasn't been great many inputs from Drug Control of India's oversight on these devices, because they are not used in hospital.
Pamela, this is
Yeah.
Vasu here. I may be able to partly answer your question.
Yes, please.
So I'm guessing the way TUV will certify such a concentrator is to first of all have a calibrated oxygen sensor and a calibrated flow meter, and something that whose standards can be traced to, let's say, like NIST standard or a National Physical Laboratory standard in India. And so when somebody sells a concentrator, it should be mandated that from one of these standard certification agencies, a certificate be obtained that very clearly states that at so and so flow rate, if the ventilator says that there is so much oxygen in it, the certificate should come from one of these agencies saying that at this flow rate, you have this level of oxygen in the ventilator. That is the first part of your question. The second part is what can be used. I'm guessing that is part of what Justin addressed, and that depends on what is it that a patient is, put on, and whether that level of oxygen is able to raise the oxygen saturation levels in the patient. And I think on that he was trying to say that one cannot comment because the doctor needs to see the patient to see what is the best oxygen level to raise the patient's oxygen saturation level.
So that is based on trials. That was based on human trials, basically. But certification, okay, so we need to publicize that awareness. I think there's no awareness of what certification to look for. Okay.
Concentrator.
So in terms of the the flow rate which we were just talking about, I think predominantly if you look at most of the Chinese machines which are there, and when they talk about a 5 liter, the actual output is only about 3.5 liters or maybe about 4 liters. That is, I think, one of the things we need to check whether at the at a 5 liter 100% is the flow rate matching at 93% is very, very important. I think that's what we all need to look at. Whereas that is exactly what we've been working on our equipment, where at 7 liter and at 15 liter our actual capacity is 9 liters and 20 plus liters, so that we get the actual output of 7 liters plus.
So the correct way to do it, Pamela, if I may, is if it's possible and if it's not already available, there is no point in reinventing the wheel. For the Indian Standards Institute to come out with an emergency set of standards and a set of people who can certify oxygen concentrators against those standards. And I don't think it is very difficult to do that.
Okay.
So there's a question connected to that by Mr. Himanshu Gupta to the organizers and the panelists. Then why is the government giving certification to Chinese imported machines and we are dealing with lives here?
Are they giving? Do these Chinese manufacturers have any certification? That's my question.
Or they are coming in without any certification?
Yeah, there is no certification. That's the question. So is Manoj Punnuswamy, can he answer some of this? Manoj, can you speak now?
So Manoj has been, Manoj, you are, please unmute yourself. And we can make you the presenter if you want.
So while Manoj is coming online, there was some question connected to RO filters and how do you do the industrial product design and modeling? Can IC team help the entrepreneurs in case they are stuck or they want some help? So I believe this has already been answered. So the link of the IC SPOC has been given. So they could reach out to the IC team and they should be able to help. This is my understanding. IC team may like to say further on that. Thank you.
No, you're right. Please do connect. We would definitely help everybody whoever is seriously interesting. On the same coin, I would like to tell if you don't have the bandwidth, you can't do it, but you really want to do, join hands with somebody else who is doing. So doing it in a group probably help. For example, here Anup is there, so you want to join, do something else with them. That would be better rather than if you don't have bandwidth.
Also, I'd like to extend our report in terms of the oxygen concentrators manufactured by our principal company has got a state-of-the-art robotic manufacturing facility in Tamil Nadu. We would definitely look forward if anybody is coming forward to join hands and partner with us in whatever extent we can definitely discuss and take that forward as well.
Sure. So is Manoj planning to present something? I suddenly saw his screen coming up.
Manoj, you there?
But his audio is still muted. He's a
Mr.
presenter
Manoj,
now.
can you
Made the
unmute yourself?
Looks like there's some technical issue with Manoj.
I see. Okay, so I think both these companies. So you want to put your contacts in the chat window, Rajesh, whoever people should connect with?
Yeah,
Along with from VASMED, we have Anup, and we have the ISC Tatpar contact, and we could also have your contact.
So there's a question from ITI Limited, Mr. Arun. He wants to know what is the cost per unit provided that manufacturing can be done at mass level. So ITI Limited could be interested in doing mass manufacture with either ISC or the other startups who are trying to do this. So they can reach out to him separately or they can answer now.
So I see Manoj is saying I have unmuted myself. Asif? Manoj has put a chat in the chat window that he is unmuted.
Mr. Manoj, I can see your presentation is unmuted, but mic is not unmuted. I've requested to unmute yourself again.
You have to unmute your mic. Mic and video you can unmute.
And while we are waiting for Manoj to get unmuted, there was a question on is there a specific requirement for manufacturing of oxygen concentrators? Like Mr. Anup, I think mentioned that for ventilators, you need a properly certified factory environment. But for concentrators, do you need a similar environment, or it can be manufactured in a normal type of setting?
It's another interesting question regarding whether this can be battery operated version is available or vehicle mountable unit. Can this be designed? Is the design compatible for that? And something connected to that is, can we have a panel of such in a hospital setting? Panel of such oxygen concentrators where all connected, and this can be viewed by the doctor if the doctor shortage is there on a single screen. Thank you.
Okay, that is both of these are a little loaded in terms of the question. So Anup, do you want to take the first one on whether you need a certified manufacturing capability to manufacture an oxygen concentrator? I am not aware of that. I don't have that knowledge. Or it could even be, yeah.
So for manufacturing any medical devices, CDSO mandates a minimum requirement, at least ISO 13485 certification. And second thing will be in terms of the cleanable, the area where the production is happening, where it should be clean. And I don't think there is a guideline where a clean room is required for either ventilator or oxygen concentrator, but there will be minimum requirements in terms of the space and the area that is there. So ideally, for the certification perspective, at least the facility should be ISO.
Okay, thank you, Anu.
Okay, on the next question on whether you could put a bunch of these oxygen concentrators in parallel and generate a lot of oxygen or not, it's a complicated question to answer. What I can definitely say, and I think I mentioned it in between, that in ISC itself, in addition to this concentrator that Professor Praveen Ramurthy and team have put up, which generates about 5 to 10 liters per minute of flow, with about 95 to 85% oxygen saturation. So with the increase in flow rate, the oxygen saturation will drop. There is another team that has built a 50 liters per minute oxygen generator or concentrator using the same principle. So it can be scaled up, but I think there are issues with connecting the same line to many patients. You have to ensure that there is no cross contamination and such. So honestly, I do not have a answer to that question that I can authoritatively give. But there are many other ways of scaling up oxygen production, and zeolite adsorption is but one way of doing that.
Okay, thank you. So there was now, if we can take questions around the raw material availability, the supply chain security part of it. So if for this particular version of the oxygen concentrators, is enough zeolite available? Because the slide that Anup had shown mentioned the sources to be from outside India. So is there enough zeolite supply available, and the other critical items, or would we need any support or intervention from the authorities on this part?
Praveen here. There is a major challenge with zeolite, but even a few of the companies who make good zeolite for oxygen.
line pe.
Hello. The good oxygen generator grade zeolite is available. Even the couple of companies who had told us they have 100 metric ton, now they are saying it's not there immediately. So I think some intervention from the authority side would really help to collectively get it to India, and then probably based on who is manufacturing, distribute it, or do something like that.
Yeah, thank you. And the other components, the compressor, the control panel, and the valve, all those would be indigenously manufactured, right?
No, the compressor also right now what we have used is what we got it from US, but there are others which are available, can be explored. I will leave it to companies to explore as long as the parameters match. Control panel is what I said we have optimized from last 1.5 years. No need to make on their own. They are more than welcome to make on their own or use this existing one. We can connect to the people who make this. Either you get things of your own or do it with them. Either way it can be done. Valve, again, when all this NDA and things get signed up, we'll give the design, we'll connect you to the vendor who is making it. So that way also it can be progressed.
Okay, thank you. So we are still having a challenge with getting Manoj on the line. So Rajesh, if you want, Manoj's presentation could be emailed to Asif or one of the TSDSI colleagues, and we could present it on his behalf. And you could pitch in with the remarks, if that works for you.
Sure. I'll definitely check that, and I'll do the needful soon.
All right. Okay. Thank you. And it's already 1:15 p.m., but we still have a few questions to go. So if it is okay with the speaker panelists and the delegates, we would like to extend this by another 10 minutes and try to pick up the more critical questions.
Bindu, this is Vasu here. I've just put up Praveen's and Sushobhan's email IDs, and it would be nice if that could be put up here for the concentrator and the ventilator.
Okay, so on the screen right now you can see the IC. Would you want to put up another colleague's details also here, Vasu?
Yeah, Praveen and Sushobhan's, I have put it up there.
All right. Okay. Yeah, so I'll request my colleague Asif and Shefali to quickly update that information. Praveen and Sushobhan on this slide deck.
Sure, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. So we have covered questions around the design, the raw material components, the certifications, and the other side, the requirements from the hospitals and the end users. So there was a generic question around what is because the oxygen concentrators apparently are being used by end users in the home environment. So is there any guidance on when to use a concentrator versus an oxygen cylinder versus going to on ventilator support? So if Dr. Justin could give some kind of guidance and usage, and can it be done independently by the patient themselves, or do they need to do this under the doctor's supervision? That would be great if you could throw some light on that, Dr. Justin.
Yes, thank you. So the commonest guidance that we can see in medical literature about use of home oxygen is only for chronic illnesses. All the American Thoracic Society, British Thoracic Society, all these things have advised concentrators as a way to overcome the oxygen cylinder supply problem to the community, which is not as robust as to a hospital. And so most of the time they say that as long as the need is less than 4 liters per minute, you could use a concentrator as an alternative to a cylinder, which is sometimes a lot more heavier than the concentrator to be made mobile if the patient needs mobility to just get out of the house, to sit in outside their house, and so on and so forth. So these are the reasons why those guidelines are initially set up or mentioning concentrator only in chronic illnesses. Now we are looking at acute illness, that means that something that is causing you trouble within the first week or two of something that triggered the problem. And in this setting, it is a rapidly evolving situation. So using concentrator will not necessarily be an ideal solution and only a patchwork solution at this point of time, given the problem, which isn't medical, but mostly to do with the supply demand. And so it is unlikely that there's going to be an advice saying that you use concentrator at home when it is actually likely to be harmful advice, because you could lose out on the pressures like in minutes or hours, when the situation could rapidly evolve and then we are not necessarily monitoring adequately, thinking that we are getting some oxygen, and that could lead to certain problems. And also we haven't captured enough number of people who have used concentrators in community anecdotally and found that they actually managed to get through it without any problem, and that we need to find which group of people you could use it. So at this point of time, the guidance from medical doctors still is that please come to hospital if the oxygen level drops, not to use concentrator at home. Because once you come to the hospital and for a period of time that you are there, and then if your oxygen levels isn't rapidly escalating over a period of maybe a few hours to a day or two, then they could still advise you to take concentrator as a way of getting oxygen at home or any other COVID care center. But home concentrator guidance will not be available if I was the physician upfront.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Justin, for that guidance. We'd also want to take some questions around the funding, the finances part of it. So there are some attendees here in the webinar today who are wanting to contribute financially to support the local indigenous manufacturer. And can Anup and Himanshu and Rajesh probably throw some light on what is the financial aspects, and where could you do with some support or engagement on the finances part or investment part?
Yeah, I could talk from the NGO perspective. So I am personally aware of many NGOs and charity organizations who are currently in the process of buying oxygen concentrators, which could be used by people free of cost at the time of need, because not everybody can actually afford to buy a concentrator and keep it. So I can always connect such funders to these organizations. Typically, these imported concentrators are costing anywhere between 30,000 to 1.5 lakhs, depending on the brand and the output. And I think Rajesh will anyways mention the pricing of his concentrators.
Yeah. Thank you. And Anu, Rajesh,
Our side, Wasmed, we would appreciate any support that can help us to scale up this operation, primarily in terms of pre-orders or support with the sourcing. So, that if that kind of a working capital support is available, that will help us to scale up substantially.
Yeah, I think it all boils down to economies of scale. Funding is definitely a major part of this thing. As one of the panelists did mention in the beginning of the conversation, it's a chicken or the egg story. I think where do we take this call of how many to manufacture, and a pre-order would definitely help manufacturers at this point to take up this up. And coming to our concentrators, we have priced them for the 7 liter, we have priced them at 60,000 rupees plus GST, and the 15 liter one we have priced at 1.2 lakhs plus GST at this point. And obviously, we'll also definitely look at bringing down the cost once we have some numbers coming.
If
okay.
I could quickly add, any such source of funding people who are interested to fund, while they could definitely approach people like Anup, Himanshu, and Rajesh directly, the IISc project team, which is tatpar at iisc.ac.in, is also helping channel such funds to groups like Anup. So they could also help coordinate this whole activity, because I'm guessing there is a certain amount of feedback and control that the people who fund would like to ensure that the money they are putting on the table is being put to good use. So IISc Tatpar team can also help coordinate such initiatives.
Thank you very much, Vasu. That information is useful. If the manufacturers on the panel, Rajesh and Anup, you could share some kind of a timeline of when you can be ready with commercial, for picking up commercial orders after having satisfied the certifications and approvals from the Drug Controller Authority of India, etc., etc. That would be a great help for some of the participants in this call to be able to, decide on how they would like to support your, production activities and even the certification activities, plus also making, placing pre-orders on you. So that may help. If you could mail it to us, and we could then place it, make it available to the community, including the Tatpar initiative, and how do we go about supporting Tatpar and these activities.
So,
Definitely, we can provide that information.
Yeah, we'll definitely share that information soon.
So are we ready to conclude now, Bindu?
Yes, Pamela. I think Anurag, I think we've covered almost all the categories of questions.
Yes, except one, I'd just like to mention that number of different government agencies like Mighty, Invest India, and a few others have posted the kind of help and support they can provide in the questions chat box with the links given, including a few people have suggested that they have got space with them, they can support manufacturing and funding, coup of merit. So similarly, the audience and the other members can go through that, and we will also be posting the video of this separately after a few days in both website of TSDSI and TCOE India. So anyone who would like to go through that can again refer to this. So Bindu can take on from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Anurag, and I'll hand over back to Pamela for making the concluding remarks.
Okay, is Mr. Pathak there? No. Okay. So yeah, so I would conclude. I think that's very good input, Anurag, that you've given about the things that have been posted by people extending help. I think we should consolidate and send that over email also to all the attendees and especially to the panelists, so that they have all that information handy to them. Okay. So again, thank you very much for everybody who came together. I think it was a very insightful and important conversation that has happened here. Our intention was to really bring everybody together and to kind of demystify all this, talk buzz that is there about oxygen concentrators. And it's very clear that we are all facing these difficulty about where to source, what to source, and there's a lot of money being put, and it's very obvious that uh, there are a lot of processes that need to be put in place to ensure that the right thing is happening, which is actually saving lives and saving people in the hospital. So Justin, especially I thank Justin for taking this time off in this critical time and giving so much insight to us on where the difficulties are. I would there are a lot of actions that could possibly come out of this if people want to take forward. I think Pavan Agarwal gave us a carte blanche open offer from the Ministry of Commerce, and he apparently has direct stake on DPIIT, and he said any other help you need from ICMR or Drug Controller of India or any other certificate government agency, I am there with you as a team to help you. I think that was a very big and very important offer that has been made. If people want to take advantage of that and something can be put together and sent to them, or that would be something we can definitely help mobilize. There was one person he brought, Sanjay, who's willing to also partner with these startups and help them with funding and logistics and sourcing of various supply chain things. So I think that's another open offer that we have here. So if people feel that we should continue this dialogue with another session, maybe in some time, maybe next week or something, let us know. We could again mobilize this dialogue, or if this has served the purpose that people know who is who and can connect offline and take off, that's fine too. So we would wait to hear from you if you would want to have another round of discussion and till we have things under control. Otherwise, we are very thankful for everybody who has come together, and maybe we can make it a little community and share a mailing list. That should be doable, right, Bindu?
Yes, Pamela, we can create a small mailing list, and folks who are interested in continuing in this engagement, they could just send in an email to us. Yeah, and we'll put them on the mailing list.
Yeah, so we can create a mailing list with all the attendees and all the panelists, and based on what happens in that, we can see if we want to get together again. So thank you very much. A very insightful session and really good use of a Saturday morning. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Pamela, for the concluding remarks. We do have Mr. Pathak with us, and if he would also like to make any remarks. Yeah, Mr. Pathak. Mr. Pathak, we can't hear you.
Okay, sure. Done. I got you.
Mr. Pathak is on mute. Does anybody else want to add anything, or should we close the session?
Mr. Pathak, we can't hear you, so perhaps if you.
And now we can. Now he's unmuted.
Okay.
Mr. Pathak, आवाज नहीं आ रही. Okay, maybe there's some audio issues. He's coming up as unmuted, but we can't hear him. So let's conclude the session then.
Yeah.
Okay,
thank you very much,
again, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And we are really encouraged with the overwhelming response we got. We still have about 100 attendees stayed with us throughout. We will be sending you a small feedback form after this webinar, wherein you could express your interest of engaging further with this activity. And then, yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.